morning. You know what we're doing at this time. We're heading on over to Film School. Dr. Joe Fortunato, film study professor, joining us live this morning. We're going back to the 90s. Gosh, I haven't seen this movie in quite some time. Joe brought it up and said, I want to do this movie. And actually, it is a delightful movie, and I love the creativity. So, Joe, why don't you kind of take it from there, my friend?
Thanks, Frank. Thanks, everybody. This is, the last couple of weeks, we've kind of discussed a few movies that I labeled forgotten classics or something of that nature. This movie was not a very successful movie when it came out. So I don't know, maybe this is a forgotten gem or an underseen gem, whatever we want to call it. I'm going to assume most of the time when we do this segment, I assume everybody's seen the movie we've talked about. I'm not assuming that today. And that's a movie that I think is just one of the most lovely little movies that you can see, and that is Defending Your Life in 1991. It was released in April of 1991, so we're celebrating its 35th anniversary this month. And it was written and directed by Albert Brooks. It stars Albert Brooks, the great Meryl Streep, Rip Torn, Lee Grant. And I'll tell you what it's about, because if you haven't seen it, it's just after being killed in a car crash, Daniel Miller, played by Albert Brooks, finds himself in a place called Judgment City, which is a waiting area for the newly deceased. Now, while there, he and everybody that goes to Judgment City must prove in some sort of courtroom-style process that he successfully overcame his fears and just improved his life as a human over the course of his life. So that sounds a little heavy. In the subject matter, it definitely is heavy, but it's Albert Brooks, so it's very funny, it's very clever, it's very creative, as you said, and I think it's just a wonderful, wonderful movie. In fact, the film reviews are overwhelmingly positive. If you go to somewhere like Rotten Tomatoes, which I usually don't put a lot of stock in, but still, it holds a 92% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, which is very high. Like I said, it didn't do very well in the box office. It was not a success. And it's kind of, I don't know that I would call it a cult film, but it's kind of built up an audience over the last 35 years. I think people that have seen it love it and tell their friends kind of thing. The film has 3 Oscar winners in it: Meryl Streep, Shirley MacLaine, and Lee Grant. And there are 2 Oscar nominees, Buck Henry and Rip Torn. This was Albert Brooks' first feature since he appeared in Broadcast News in 1987, which was a big hit, although not necessarily an Albert Brooks movie where he wrote and directed. It was just one that he starred in. But so he had been away from the movies for a few years when he did this film. There's a couple of characters. One of them is Lena Foster, and she's sort of the opposing attorney played by Lee Grant. Originally, he offered the role to Audrey Hepburn, but she had sort of retired from acting following her little cameo that she did a couple of years early in Spielberg's Always in 1989. So she turned it down. A lot of other casting things. Bob Diamond is the lawyer that Rip Torn plays. Originally, Albert Brooks was thinking about Peter Fonda to play Bob Diamond, but the production company who produced the film sort of advised against it, said Fonda hadn't really had any noteworthy hits since Easy Rider, which at the time was 20 years prior, and felt that he might not be able to carry a movie like that. And Christopher Lloyd was also offered that role of Bob Diamond, but he was busy doing Back to the Future 3. Going back to that role of Lena Foster, Jane Fonda was offered the role, but she had retired from acting at the time. Of course, she's come back and returned to acting. Now, the role of Julia that went to Meryl Streep, and by the way, they do not give her a last name as a character. They wanted to keep her kind of mysterious. So she doesn't have a last name, but Brooks offered that role to Glenn Close, who was unable to accept it, but suggested her friend Meryl Streep instead. And then, as luck would have it, Albert Brooks ran into Meryl Streep at a party at Carrie Fisher's, and he says jokingly, "Hey, do you want to be in my movie?" And she says, "Yeah, I'd love to." And that's how that comes to getting, a big time Oscar winner in a little scene comedy role. And, Meryl Streep doesn't do comedy all that often, so that's another treat as well.
Joe, you mentioned all the casting there, and when you look at it, it's an extremely good cast. And then you say, boy, this thing is set up to do really, really well. But you also mentioned there that it wasn't a box office success. And for that time, I'm a bit surprised when you look at the casting in this movie.
Well, I think that might be attributed to. Albert Brooks sort of has a certain style and a certain following.
That's true. Yeah.
And his fans will follow him with everywhere, and the people who aren't familiar with his comedy or don't like his comedy might not. It's a little cerebral at times, and this movie definitely is cerebral comedy. It makes you think a lot. I want to say that this is not a religious movie, and I don't want people to think it is. It deals with death, and it deals with what comes. Is there an afterlife, and these very existential questions. But it's a funny movie. It's warm, and the movie actually originally was focused more on. I'll spoil it because it didn't actually happen. But the original ending of the movie was that Albert Brooks was going to come back reincarnated as a horse. Now that didn't happen because as they started developing the movie, they got more invested in the romance between him and Meryl Streep's character. So it's definitely a romantic comedy. So if you're into romantic comedies, it certainly fits that bill.
Yeah, I agree. I remember seeing it years ago, and Joe brought it up earlier this week, and I said, yeah, let's revisit it. It's creative. It's something that's a little bit different. To Joe's point, really well put, Albert Brooks's comedy is not for everyone. I kind of like it myself. So, again, you might want to jump into that movie again this weekend. All right, Joe, what do you got? I'm sorry, go ahead, my friend. Yeah,
I was just going to say, I usually don't do this, but in the case of this film, where we want to encourage people who haven't seen the film to see it, unfortunately, it's not streaming anywhere for free, but it is available for a couple of bucks on Apple TV and Amazon Prime, and you can always go to your local library and pick it up there.
Perfect. Joe, what do you have over at your website or appearances? What's going on?
Not anything coming up in the next few weeks, but as always, you can go to my website, joefortunato.net, just to keep tabs on things. You can listen to archives of this show. You can see what I have coming up. You can learn a little bit about stuff we've done in the past. And just I always encourage everyone to bookmark joefortunato.net and keep up with what we're doing and have some fun.
Hey, something. Speaking of fun, he makes the world of entertainment, especially movies, a lot of fun, and we're lucky to have him joining us here on Friday mornings. Dr. Joe Fortunato Film School, each and every Friday at this time, WAKR. Joe, again, as always, you know it. Thank you so much, my friend, and we'll do it again next week.
Thanks. Look forward to it.
There you go. Dr. Joe Fortunato with us here on the Ray Horner Morning Show, 22 minutes after 8 WAKR.